Hey guys, today we're going to be making well done steak. I prefer my steak rare to medium rare. So do a lot of you, but people are always going to cook their steaks well done. So I figured I might as well show you the best way that I've found to cook a well done steak and make sure it's still juicy. So I've got a New York strip here. I'm going to pat it dry just to get the moisture off of the outside of the steak. That'll help with our browning later. Next, we're going to season this with kosher salt. So I like to use a lot of kosher salt. I would recommend against using like a seasoning mix at this stage, because if you put spices on the outside of the steak, it's just going to burn the spices and your steak will taste like, I don't know, burned cardamom or something like that, which you don't really want. It's not really a nice flavor. So we're going to season it with kosher salt, scrape up all the extra salt off the cutting board, make sure you get the edges, and let that hang out for a second while we get our pan preheated. So I've got a stainless steel pan here that I'm heating over medium-low heat. We're going to use some high smoke point oil, like a neutral oil, like canola or vegetable oil. That's going to help us to keep our kitchen from smoking up too crazy. Put the meat in the pan. We will make sure that we have good contact with the bottom of the pan. And you can start to flip this as soon as it naturally releases from the pan. We want to flip this pretty often. The whole only flip a steak once thing is kind of a myth. All the juices are going to stay in the pan anyway in this case, and flipping it pretty often is going to allow us to develop a much more even crust. Next, I'm going to start basting my steak. I'm going to do this in the last few minutes of my cooking, and I'm using garlic, some fresh thyme, and about 2 tablespoons of butter here. This is really going to help us get into those nooks and crannies and develop a great crust, develop a lot of flavor in our steak. And I'm going to be temping this steak pretty often throughout the process too. I'm shooting for a 160 internal temperature, that's Fahrenheit. And once we're at that stage, we're going to go ahead and take our steak, put it back on a nice clean cutting board, put those aromatics back over it. I like to put some of the butter on top too. And we're just going to cover this with aluminum foil and rest it for 10 minutes. Resting is really going to allow the steak to reabsorb those juices so that it doesn't dry out. It's going to pull those juices back into itself and kind of just all even out essentially. My knife is kind of dull, as you'll see here, but we're just going to slice the steak against the grain. That way the muscle fibers are nice and short. The cut with the grain of the muscle fibers, then they're going to be long and chewier, which is not something that we want for, if our goal is a tender, delicious steak here. So I like to cut this into nice strips ahead of time. I think it works well. It looks nicer on the plate than just throwing a slab of steak onto, somebody's plate like that. And then here we have the finished product. As you can see, it's well done, it's juicy, it has all that delicious butter and juices, and it's cooked all the way through without any pink in the middle. Enjoy.